Okay then, so straight on with our 10-minute topic this week. Very excited. We are now starting to review some equipment with you guys, so the 10-minute chat's going to get a little bit more interesting for you. Well, if you're into the equipment that we're reviewing, I suppose it'll get a bit more interesting for you. If not, then soz. You'll have to get in touch with us and let us know what you do want to hear on the podcast. So we're getting cracking this week with our review of Behringer's TD-3 acid synth, as promised. It's an analog baseline synthesizer, and it's a replica of Roland's TB-303 synth that was originally released in the 1980s. Milk is going to take a back step here. I'm just going to drivel on for the next 10 minutes because this is my it's my synth, and I can probably talk to you about it for 10 minutes without him even getting his word in. So I'm just going to go through today the basic controls, just talk about how much you can get these for, just how to get started on it, making some noise. And then next week we will be looking into a bit more detail on how to manually sequence and write your own patterns, tracks, and we'll probably have a bit of a jam. So to be honest, the part 2 of this review is probably going to be a bit more fun than the one today. But if you've no idea what the synth is or what it does, then today would be a great place to start. So, a little bit of history about the TB-303. It was originally designed to emulate bass guitar sounds. It was a commercial flop because it didn't sound anything like a bass guitar, which you will come to realise very soon when I start playing some samples from the synth. So it was a commercial flop. They didn't sell a lot of them. They became sort of second-hand, really cheap on the market, and that's when they fell into the hands of DJs on the underground scenes, and they developed what we now know as acid house. So that's a little, very brief history there, as I understand it. They are used in other genres, but predominantly acid house. And if you've never heard any acid house, you will still probably recognise some of the sounds that this synth makes. You can buy them for, price-wise, around anything between £100 and £130 brand new. So they're not majorly expensive in true Behringer style. They've done it at a really reasonable price for what it is. That's great value for money as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, if you're into this kind of thing, I would recommend getting one of these. They're just worth having around. They come in 4 different colours. So the one that we're looking at today is a lovely yellow one. I chose the yellow one because it's got the acid smiley face on it, to be honest. All the other ones have the Behringer logo in that spot, but the yellow one comes with a little acid smiley face logo. I'm sure you all know what that face looks like. It's a little yellow smiley face if you've no idea what I'm talking about. So that is the pure reason why I chose to go with the yellow one, just because it makes me happy every time I look at it. Bit of nostalgia there. What else can I tell you? They come in 4 different colours, so red, silver, black, and this yellow one. They are analog, yes, so they're going to need probably about 10-15 minutes to warm up. So some people may not know that, and they might just plug them in and start jamming away on them. They do require 15 minutes to warm up all the internal components, so that's something to be aware of. Also, only use the power cable that came with the synth. You don't want to melt it. If you do use a different power cable, as it is quite a common power port on the back, you do run the risk of melting your synthesizer. So it's a 9-volt DC power adapter that comes with the synth. It can be plugged into an AC outlet capable of supplying from 100 to 240 volts at 50 to 60 hertz. So you've really have only got to use the power cable that's supplied with the unit. It's very important. And also make sure you do warm it up for 15 minutes before you start jamming away on it. So the TD3 compared to the TB-303, it's got additional shift functions and a distortion section that didn't come on the original. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about those in a minute. But I'm very conscious that the clock is ticking pretty fast now. We're nearly halfway through this part 1 review, so I better get on to talk a little bit more about the functions that we've got available. So just going over some of these functions then, we have got a synth, the synthesizer section, so it's a 1 oscillator synth. That's all you get. We've got a choice of two waveforms. There is sawtooth wave or a square wave that you can choose from. In the synth section, we've got tune control, cutoff, resonance, envelope, decay, and accent. So the tune function adjusts the frequency of the internal oscillator approximately 1 octave for either side of centre on that control. The cutoff control adjusts the cutoff frequency of the low pass filter. Resonance adjusts the amount of emphasis given to the signal level at the cutoff frequency. The envelope control selects the depth of modulation applied by the envelope generator to the filter cutoff frequency. Decay controls the amount of time taken for the envelope to decay from the current level to the minimum level. So that's essentially how long it takes for the sound to sort of fade away. Accent control adjusts the amount of accent given to the output for any notes that are programmed with an accent. So if anyone doesn't know what an accent is, it's sort of the emphasis. So it's like emphasizing one particular note, and that control allows you to adjust just exactly how emphasized that particular note is. So in the Patchbay section, we have got analog inputs and outputs. We've got filter in, sync in, CV out, gate out, and a phone's output there. The distortion section has its own separate controls, so these controls only have an effect when the distortion switch is on. The circuit is located in the signal path just before the volume control and the final audio output. So the drive section, so it's got its own controls, the distortion section has. We've got drive, which adjusts the amount of distortion applied. Tone, obviously adjusts the tone, and then level is the amount of distortion applied to the output, the overall output level. We've got some general controls, so tempo, pretty self-explanatory, how fast or slow your pattern plays. We've got overall volume control, so overall output volume. What else have we got? You can choose your waveform using the little switch to switch between sawtooth and square wave. And then we've got a track or pattern group section which shares the same knob. So you've got some numbers on the inside and some numbers on the outside. So you've got 7 tracks to choose from, or 4 different pattern groups. Each pattern group has 8 variations. So you use the numbers 1 to 8 to choose which variation you want from that pattern group. You also have an A section and a B section. So really you've got sort of 16 different variations per pattern group. The sequencer section is, as I said, used to play through either the built-in patterns, or you can use it to program your own patterns, which you can save. We will talk about that in a bit more detail on the next on part 2, because I've literally got 2 minutes to finish this 10-minute topic today. So just very quickly then, connection-wise, on the back of the unit, we've got 1 audio output. We've got 2 5-pin MIDI jacks with in, out, and through. We've got a USB port for computer software control. Behringer do provide some software with this synth. You can use their SYNTH tool, and you can change all the settings on the software. Some people might find that's a little bit easier than doing it on the actual synthesizer, as it can get a little bit complicated, which we'll, like I say, talk about on part 2 in a bit more detail. And then you've got your power input port there as well. Okay, so should we have a very quick listen then for the last minute or 2 that we've got left remaining? So just quickly before you do try and get some sound, if you are using one of these yourself, if you find that you're not getting any sounds at all out of your synth, you may need to change the clock source on the device. I'll tell you very quickly how to do that for anyone who's watching on YouTube. We've got ours set up audio out going into an interface and then out through some speakers. You can just plug it directly into a speaker using the audio output, but you'd need to set the clock source to internal in order to get sound out of the speakers. So to do that, you need to press function, make sure there's no sequence playing at the time, and then press the back and right next buttons at the same time to enter sync setting mode. Buttons 1, 2, 3 and 4 represent the clock source. So 1 represents internal clock, 2 represents MIDI clock, 3 represents USB clock, or 4 represents trigger clock. source. So for this we need internal, so we'll press function, press back and right at the same time, and make sure selector button 1 is enabled. Also, just so you know, selector switches 5, 6, 7 and 8 represent the clock rate settings. So 24 ppq or 48 ppq is recommended. This one is set to 24 ppq. So I suppose we better have a quick listen to what it sounds like then. Let's choose a pattern group first of all. So I'm going to go for pattern group 3. It's worth noting that the track numbers 1 to 7. Pattern group 3, if you choose 5 or 6, is the same sound will come out, because that's pattern group 3. It shares the same knob. So we'll choose pattern group 3, and then we will choose which pattern we want using numbers 1 to 8. So let's hear number 2, and we will choose pattern section A for this, and we'll press the start stop button, and this is what it sounds like. You will find that the cut-off and resonance are your friends when you're playing with this synth. And this is pattern group 3, pattern 3. We're still on pattern group 3, but we'll press 4 for pattern number 4, and have a listen to that. And then just lastly, let's have a listen to some from pattern group 4. We'll stay on pattern number 4. These are some of my favourite patterns. And remember, press section B to change. I think pattern A was better. And that's the end of our 10-minute topic this week, so hopefully catch you again for part 2 next time.